guru said, I give Ashirvad blessing to your book. I didn't have a book. It was kind of, and I came back and I wrote a book, and it turned out not to be a book because 9 publishers turned it down. And I gave some lectures in at a sculptor studio in New York. And there was a woman there who was a court stenographer, and she took down everything I said. And she came up to me afterwards. She gave me a big pile of papers. Here's your words. And I thought, interesting, let's put it in the trunk of my car. And I then went out to Esalen in California, and somebody went to pull out my bag. And what's that? Papers. And I told them, and they said it was John Gladchow, who he's a writer, and he said, let me look at it. So took it out, and he said, yeah, there was good stories in there. I got to Lama, and Steve Durkee said, here, let me get your bags. What's that? And it was the same thing. And we had lunch and dinners. There were about 6 artists. An artist would pick some words and go and do their articles and one. And then we put this out as a box. The box with all kinds of papers in it, and record, and we gave it away for people would come to my lectures for $2, and then they'd get this box. And then I went to India, and Steve, he kept the box, and then you came in.
Well, what had happened was I had published Peter Max's poster book, and Peter was a devotee of Swami Muktananda, and we became quite friendly, and he wanted to take me to hear more about Eastern traditions. And so he would take me to several different lectures, and it was nice. I was pleased, I was interested, but nothing really struck my heart. And he called me one night and he said, now I have something that I think will really interest you. Ram Dass is going to come and speak at the Unitarian Church on Central Park West and 76th Street. And so I said, all right, I'll go. And we went and we sat probably in the back row, or pretty near the back. And people came in chanting and singing and throwing rose petals, and it was very nice. And then Ram Dass got up to speak, and it just knocked me out. It was instantaneous, partly because of what he was saying, partly because of his delivery, I don't know. I guess people say sometimes you're ready to hear.
Yeah.
And I guess I was ready to hear at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was smitten. And it affected me in a way that none of the other Asian people had affected me. And I was, when he finished, everybody was rushing to the stage. And like a groupie, I ran to the stage too. And I don't know how, I think I managed to get to the dressing room or the backstage and met Ram Dass and just pushed my way through and said, this has to be a book, I want to publish it. And he was very nice and he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And we had a little longer dialogue. And Ram Dass said, I don't want to do a book that is going to be sold because I'm very concerned about money and I'm very concerned about making any kind of money, commercial enterprise, off the Dharma. So we are giving away this box, and if you want to give away the book, perhaps we could do that. And I said, well, I would love to give it away. But unfortunately in the United States now we live in a commercial capitalist economy. And actually, when people pay for things, sometimes they value them more than when they get them for free. But I won't make any money off this. I will guarantee you that we will find a way to do this in which we will be using as much right livelihood as we could possibly use. And he still was skeptical and left. And I said, how can I get in touch with you? This is well before email. And he said, well, I'll be traveling and you can look up my schedule. And I think I would write him postcards in different places, trying to be persistent about this because it never really left my mind that this was something that should be available. And I guess a year and a half later, suddenly, from out of the blue, I got a phone call that Ram Dass was going to be in Albuquerque at the Ramada Inn, and would I like to come out there and discuss this matter further. And it was at a time in my life when my life was in utter chaos.
What?
I had fallen in love with a woman after living with my first wife and having 2 children. And I was going through a really tough stage of trying to decide what I wanted to do and how I was going to handle it. So when this call came, I said, well, maybe this is the right time for me to go. And I don't know how I convinced the people at work, who really didn't know what was going on, that I should go out to Albuquerque. I'd never been west of the Mississippi, and suddenly here I was flying into Albuquerque to go to the Ramada Inn. And I came, and Ram Dass was there with Steve Durkee and Barbara, I think. And we went into a room where there were 2 large double beds, and the art from Bindu to Ojas was on huge pieces of craft paper, probably,
Yeah.
oh, it must have been 6 feet by 6 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big, really huge thing. And they started to turn these pages over for me, and it was just an incredible experience. I had never seen anything quite like this. They were the words that I had responded to, and they were beautifully represented in art, which made them even more powerful in some ways. So it absolutely convinced me that we needed to do this. And I said to Ram Dass, well, if you're so worried about the money factor, we can put the money, who's getting what money, in the book. And we can run a page, which somebody named Money Yoga, and it showed that Ram Dass was getting almost nothing. Lama was going to be the recipient of whatever money the author would get. And I was absolutely stupefied, I guess would be the word, by this. And a friend of mine had driven out from California, and he drove to the Ramada Inn and picked me up and said, let's go to California. And since I was that far west, I said, okay. So we had this amazing drive from down Route 66, from Albuquerque through Needles and up to Big Sur, where we ran out of gas and had to sleep in the Julia Pfeiffer State Park. And it was just an amazing trip in every way. And I got back to my office and went in and saw the president of the company and said, I found this book that I think we must do. And they sent me the manuscript in the Bindu to Ojas box. And my job at that time was to be the head of the sales for one of the divisions of the company. I was not an editor. I was not a publisher. I was a schlepper.
Yeah.
And so the head of the company said, okay, well, we'll show this to the editor-in-chief, and we'll see if you think this is good. We'll look at it. The editor-in-chief was a very uptight man, very, very capable, but this was at the point in the early 70s when there was certainly a counterculture going on, and this was a man who wanted no part of it. And after he read a few pages, he came back to the president of the company and said, there is no way we can publish this book. This man who is the author is a famous, notorious druggie, and this book is full of drug references, and for us to put our name on it would just be terrible. We can't do it. So the president of the company said to me, he called me in, and he said, well, we can't do it. He's the editor, and, you know, thank you for the idea. And I went home, and I came back in the next day and went right to the 82-year-old Jewish man who was the head of the company and said, well, you have three choices. You can publish the book, I'll work out a way we can distribute the book, or I'm leaving the company to do this. And he looked at me straight in the eye, and he was a man who was as important to me in some ways as Ram Dass. He was very clear about what he wanted to do, and in some ways was my publishing guru. And he looked at me and saw how serious I was, and he said, we'll work it out. So I called Steve, and we worked out a distribution arrangement where Lama would be the publisher and where Crown would distribute the book, but we would put up some of the money for the first printing, which I think was 7,500 copies.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that we were going to sell many more. And we talked about the cover and the title, and Bindu to Ojas was not something that rang in everybody's mind. So I think I was one who suggested perhaps we should call it Be Here Now. And everybody liked that.
Good plan.
And so Lama printed it, and we brought in the 7,500 copies, and we put it on our list as a book that we would publish. As Ram Dass reminds me, it was 40 years ago, which is amazing. And oh, we wanted to have, Steve was very concerned that the price be reflective of the Money Yoga page. And when we worked out what would be the right thing, it came up as $3.33. And everybody said, what is that? There's no book that is at $3.33. And I said, well, there hasn't been a book like this before, so look, everything is going to be different. Why don't we try it? And certainly it will be a reasonable price so that if young people want it, they'll be able to buy it. So we put it out at $3.33. And whenever any salesman went in to sell it, that was the discussion point with the booksellers that got everybody's attention. I think without that, we wouldn't have had as much attention. So people agreed that they would put it in stock, and we released the book. I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what month it was. Ram Dass was not going to do any publicity, particularly for the book. I ran one advertisement in the Village Voice, which was a picture of Richard Alpert next to a picture of Ram Dass, and the headline, "What's a nice Jewish boy like you doing in a place like this?"
I didn't see that. I've never seen that.
I might have one. I might have it at home somewhere in my memorabilia. And the second week after the book was published, I was standing in the subway station at Union Square, and I looked across the platform, and I saw a young man with the cover, which is unmistakable. You can't miss that cover anyway. And I just knew in my heart that this book was going to be a good thing for everybody. And we had to rush and order a second printing, and then a third printing, and then a fourth printing, and then we started to print 10,000 at a time. And I think now we've probably sold over 1 million copies, which is a phenomenon. It was a great blessing to me. Wonderful to work with Ram Dass.
The first printing was out, and I was in India, and the first copies came back, and I won to my guru, and he looked through the thing, and he got somebody to read all the English, and he called me then, and I said, "You're publishing lies," and I said, "Well, I didn't think I was publishing lies." He says, "Well, as long as you were thinking you were publishing truth, it's all right, but truth and money don't go together." And he said, you can't publish it now, because I'll tell you now, it's lies. And I wrote Steve, and I said, this is Maharaji's book, and he doesn't want it published in this change is mad. And Steve said, this is all by telegram, I got back from Albuquerque, and the printer had the job on the web press, and when I was left, and it's going to be published in the second printing. And I brought the letter to Maharaji, and he said, "Money, and you don't publish something you know is a lie." And so I said, "Okay, I'll try again." So telegraphed to Steve, and Steve said, a very strange thing happened. Your telegram arrived along with a letter from the printer saying that one of the plates was damaged, and we went into the files. I get a copy of that page, and the page wasn't there. And so we didn't have, so we took it off the press. And it was a picture of Maharaji. And that's, we who know Maharaji thinks that's the way he does business. We finally got the page and got the
Correction.
yeah.
Well, the history of the book, of course, goes on, and as the production price, as the paper became more expensive and the printing became more expensive, the price had to be changed. So it's been through a number of incarnations. And I don't know, I think it's 1414 now, something like, yes. But still in print and still available. And now I hear there are plans to do an electronic version, an e-book, which would be great to have.
The funny thing, though, 333 changed to 444.
Yes.
555, and then it went to 666, which is that's the number for the devil. And really, I couldn't stand it.
But it moved off there, and then I think it was 777 for a while.
Yeah.
That's a good number. But no matter what had happened, it was very interesting to me to watch the history. And now Random House owns Crown, and they presumed that they had the copyright and the rights to publish. But actually, as I told the people around Ramdas, there never was an assignment of copyright, because since it was a distribution, there was only a distribution agreement, and the copyright is owned by Lama Foundation and its descendants, so that you control the property totally. And I think that was interesting and a very good thing, that the rights are still vested with you.
Yep.
And it's been an amazing trip.
It's been amazing how each generation is turned on by that book.
Yes. And we saw last night a little video of a young man, probably 17 or 18 years old, talking about how important it was to him, and how, in a way, he needed some validation for how he was thinking. He had found nothing that didn't make him think he was strange and crazy, and now he was able to feel that there was something out there that could lead him to truth. And I think that will happen with Be Here Now for a long time to come.
It manifested through Lama, Esalen, New York. It manifested hearts that believed in it, that it was not my book. And when I was in India the first time, Maharaji had very strict things, and nobody talking about him in writing. And this was the first book for his life. And I really felt it was privileged to publish that book.
It's a classic.
A classic.